Have you ever watched someone steal your future while looking you straight in the eye? My name is Julia. 7 years ago, my stepmother, Hagar, emptied the college fund my late father, Finn Allen, had spent 18 years building for me. Then she handed every single dollar to her own son, Mitchell Marsh. When I asked her why, she didn't hesitate. She looked at me with a cold smile and said, "Life isn't fair, Julia. If you want a future, earn it yourself." At 18 years old, those words shattered my heart. I thought losing my father was the hardest thing I would ever experience. I was wrong, because only 3 weeks after his funeral, I lost my future too. And 7 years later, the same woman who stole everything from me would stand outside my office, begging me to save the son she had always chosen over me. But before I tell you why, you need to know how everything started. My father, Finn Allen, wasn't a millionaire. He owned a small auto repair shop on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. He worked long hours. His hands were always covered in grease. His back hurt almost every evening. But he never complained. Whenever I asked him why he worked so hard, he always smiled and said, "Because one day, my little girl is going to have opportunities I never had." Ever since I was born, Dad deposited a little money into a savings account every month. Sometimes it was $50, sometimes $100. When business was good, he added even more. He called it Julia's Dream Fund. Whenever I asked what it was for, he would gently place his hand on my head and say, "One day you'll go to college without worrying about money." My mother passed away when I was only 9 years old. For several years, it was just Dad and me. We weren't rich, but we laughed every day. Our little house felt warm because it was filled with love. Everything changed when I turned 14. Dad married a woman named Hagar. At first, she acted like the perfect stepmother. She bought me birthday presents. She asked about school. She even called me sweetheart. I honestly believed she cared about me. Then, she and her son, Mitchell Marsh, moved into our home. Mitchell was 1 year older than me. Slowly, things began to change. If Mitchell wanted the newest phone, he got it. If he wanted expensive basketball shoes, Dad somehow found the money. But whenever I needed school supplies or new clothes, Hagar always had the same answer. "Maybe next month." Dad never noticed the difference. Whenever he asked, Hagar would smile and say, "Julia is so mature. She understands that Mitchell needs a little more support." I stayed silent, because I didn't want Dad to feel guilty. I wanted him to be happy. During my senior year of high school, everything finally seemed perfect. I had excellent grades. My teachers believed I could become an architect. One afternoon, I opened my mailbox and found the letter I had dreamed about for years. I had been accepted into one of Oregon's top universities. I ran home as fast as I could. Dad was working in the garage. When I showed him the letter, he hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "I knew you could do it," he whispered. "I'm so proud of you, Julia." That evening, we celebrated with pizza and chocolate cake. Dad looked happier than I had seen him in years. None of us knew it would be our last dinner together. 3 weeks later, a drunk driver crossed the center line on the highway. Dad never made it home. In a single phone call, my world fell apart. The funeral passed in a blur. People brought flowers. They offered condolences. Then everyone went home. Less than 2 weeks later, Hagar called Mitchell and me into the dining room. Several folders were neatly arranged on the table. She smiled. "We need to discuss the family's finances." I thought we were going to talk about bills. Instead, she opened one folder. Inside was the college savings account Dad had built for me over 18 years. The balance was just over $94,000. My eyes filled with tears. Dad had kept his promise. Then, Hagar slowly closed the folder. She pushed it across the table, toward Mitchell, and quietly said, "This money belongs to him now." For a few seconds, I couldn't even breathe. I stared at the folder in front of Mitchell, then I looked at Hagar. "I'm sorry. What did you just say?" She folded her hands and calmly replied, "I said the money belongs to Mitchell now." I felt my heart racing. Dad saved that money for me. He started that account before he even met you. Hagar didn't flinch. Your father is gone, Julia. I'm responsible for this family now. And I've decided Mitchell needs it more. I turned toward Mitchell. He avoided my eyes. Mitchell, you know that money isn't yours. He remained silent. After a few moments, he quietly said, Mom thinks this is what's best. Those words shattered whatever hope I had left. Not because he agreed with her, but because he didn't have the courage to stop her. Tears filled my eyes. You both knew how hard Dad worked. You knew this was his dream for me. Hagar stood up. Enough. You're 18 years old. If you want a degree, get a job like everyone else. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't just taking my college fund. She was erasing the last promise my father had ever made to me. I slowly stood up. You didn't steal my money. You stole Dad's dream. Without saying another word, I walked upstairs. I packed everything I owned into 2 old suitcases. A few clothes, my favorite books, my mother's necklace, and the framed photo of Dad and me standing outside his repair shop on my high school graduation day. As I carried my bags downstairs, Hagar was waiting near the front door. If you leave, don't expect to come back. I looked at her one last time. This stopped being my home the day Dad died. Then I walked away. That night, I slept inside my old Honda Civic. I parked near a 24-hour grocery store. The driver's seat barely reclined. The temperature dropped below 50 degrees. I wrapped myself in an old blanket Dad had kept in the trunk. For hours, I cried until there were no tears left. Not because I had lost the money, but because I had lost the only family I had left. The next morning, reality hit me. I had less than $600 in my bank account. No home, no college fund, no one to call. So I did the only thing I could. I started over. I applied everywhere. Coffee shops, bookstores, restaurants, hotels. 3 days later, a small diner hired me as a waitress. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to survive. During the day, I served coffee and breakfast. At night, I cleaned office buildings. On weekends, I delivered groceries to earn extra money. Some days, I worked 16 hours straight. There were nights when my feet hurt so much, I could barely stand. More than once, I thought about giving up. Then I would remember Dad's smile. Never let money decide how big your dreams can be. Those words became my strength. 1 year later, I finally enrolled in college. Not because someone helped me, because I had earned every single dollar myself. I bought secondhand textbooks, skipped vacations, worked every holiday. Every paycheck had a purpose. Every sacrifice brought me one step closer to the future my father had imagined. Meanwhile, I occasionally heard news about Hagar and Mitchell. Mitchell had entered medical school, using my college fund. Hagar proudly told relatives that her son was going to become a famous doctor. As for me, she told everyone I had abandoned the family after Dad's death. No one knew the truth. No one knew she had stolen my future. For years, people believed I was the selfish daughter who walked away. At first, those lies broke my heart. Eventually, they stopped hurting. Because I learned something important. You don't have to prove your worth to people who never cared to hear your side of the story. Then one ordinary afternoon, everything changed. An email arrived from one of Seattle's most respected architectural firms. As I opened it, my hands began to shake. The first sentence read, "Congratulations, Julia. We are pleased to offer you the position." I looked up toward the sky and whispered, "We did it, Dad." But I had no idea that 7 years later, the same people who stole my future would come searching for the woman they thought would never succeed. 7 years passed. Life looked nothing like it had the night I slept in my car. I graduated with honors. The architectural firm that hired me after college quickly noticed my work ethic. I stayed late. I volunteered for difficult projects. I never complained. Every promotion, I earned. By the age of 26, I was leading one of the firm's biggest design teams. A year later, I took the biggest risk of my life. I resigned. Using every dollar I had saved, I started my own architectural design company in Seattle. The first year was brutal. There were weeks when I wasn't sure I could pay my employees. I questioned myself almost every night. But quitting was never an option, because every time I felt like giving up, I remembered Dad's words. Julia, success isn't measured by how many times you fall. It's measured by how many times you stand back up. Those words carried me through every difficult day. 5 years after opening my company, it had become one of the fastest-growing residential design firms in Washington. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving, I was truly living. Then one rainy Tuesday afternoon, my assistant knocked on my office door. "Julia! There's a woman here asking to see you. Does she have an appointment?" I asked. "No. She says it's urgent." I sighed. "I'm busy." Then my assistant quietly added, "Her name is Hagar." Everything inside me froze. 7 years. Not a single phone call. Not one birthday message. Not one apology. And now? She was standing outside my office. I took a deep breath. "Send her in." The door slowly opened. For a moment, I barely recognized her. The elegant woman who once controlled my life looked exhausted. Her expensive clothes were gone. Her hair had turned gray. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. She looked older than her age. She looked broken. "Julia," her voice trembled. "You've done well for yourself." I didn't smile. "What do you want?" She looked around my office. The awards, the blueprints, the employees working outside. Then she quietly whispered, "I'm proud of you." Those words meant nothing anymore. "You didn't come here to congratulate me." She lowered her head. "No, I need your help." There it was, the real reason she had come. I folded my hands. "I'm listening." She took a deep breath. "It's Mitchell." My expression didn't change. "What about him?" Tears filled her eyes. "He graduated from medical school, but 6 months ago, he collapsed during surgery. The doctors found severe kidney failure." I remained silent. "He needs a transplant. And the medical bills," her voice broke. "They're more than I can afford. I sold my house. I emptied my retirement savings. I borrowed money from everyone. It's still not enough." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she reached into her purse and carefully placed an old photograph on my desk. I picked it up. It was me, standing beside Dad on my high school graduation day. I slowly turned the picture over. My heart stopped. Written on the back, in Dad's handwriting, were the words, "Julia, no matter what life takes from you, never let it take your kindness." Tears filled my eyes. I hadn't seen Dad's handwriting in 7 years. Hagar quietly said, "I found it in one of Finn's old boxes. I thought you should have it." I carefully held the photograph against my chest. Then I looked back at her. "You stole my future. You destroyed Dad's final promise to me. You told everyone I abandoned my family." She nodded through her tears. "I know. I've regretted it every single day." Then, for the first time in 7 years, she said. Hagar wiped the tears from her face. "I know I don't deserve your kindness. I know I don't even deserve your time. But Mitchell is dying, Julia. I've run out of options." I looked at her for several long seconds. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the same woman who had thrown me out of the house. Life had changed her. Pain had changed her. But did that erase what she had done? No, it didn't. I slowly stood up and walked toward the large window overlooking downtown Seattle. 7 years ago, I had stood outside a grocery store with nowhere to sleep. Now I owned one of the city's fastest-growing architecture firms. Life had come full circle. Without turning around, I asked, "Does Mitchell know you're here?" Hagar nodded. "He told me not to come. He said he was too ashamed to ask you himself." That surprised me. For the first time, Mitchell had done something I didn't expect. "What exactly did he say?" Hagar took a shaky breath. "He said, 'Mom, after everything we did to Julia, we have no right to ask her for anything. He said if he dies, and it will be because of the choices we made years ago." I stayed silent. Then Hagar reached into her purse again. This time, she placed a thick envelope on my desk. "What is this?" I asked. "Letters. Mitchell has been writing them. He never had the courage to send them. Curious." I opened the envelope. Inside were several handwritten letters. The first one was dated almost 3 years earlier. It read, "Julia, I don't expect forgiveness. Every day I walk into a hospital, I remember that I became a doctor using the money your father saved for you. People call me successful. But every success reminds me of what it cost you. I swallowed hard. I opened another letter. I wanted to return the money years ago. Mom refused. I was too weak to stand against her. That weakness is something I'll regret for the rest of my life. My eyes slowly filled with tears. For years, I believed Mitchell had never cared, but these letters told a different story. He had lived with guilt every single day. Hagar quietly spoke again. He wanted to apologize so many times. But every time he tried, he said he didn't deserve to be forgiven. The room fell silent. Finally, I folded the letters and placed them back into the envelope. Then I looked directly at Hagar. "I'll meet Mitchell." Hope appeared in her eyes. "But don't misunderstand me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because my father raised me to be better than the people who hurt me." Hagar nodded through her tears. "I understand." I picked up my car keys. "Take me to the hospital." For the first time in 7 years, I was about to face the stepbrother who had accepted my future. And I had no idea that our conversation would change both of our lives forever. The drive to the hospital felt longer than it really was. Neither Hagar nor I spoke. The silence between us carried 7 years of pain. When we finally arrived, she stopped outside room 417. "He doesn't know you're coming," she whispered. I nodded. Then I slowly opened the door. Mitchell Marsh was sitting by the window. He looked nothing like the confident young man who had taken my college fund years ago. He had lost weight. His face was pale. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. The moment he saw me, he froze. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, he stood up. "I never thought you'd actually come." I looked at him calmly. "You wanted to see me." He slowly shook his head. "No. I wanted to apologize. Those are two different things." He pulled a chair toward me. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just didn't want to die without telling you the truth." I sat down. "I'm listening." Mitchell looked out the window before speaking. "The day Mom gave me your college fund, I knew it was wrong. I wanted to refuse, but I didn't. Because I was selfish. I convinced myself that becoming a doctor would somehow make everything okay." He laughed bitterly. "It never did. Every graduation, every award, every patient I saved, I remembered whose future paid for mine." His voice cracked. "I've carried that guilt every single day." He reached into the bedside drawer and pulled out a bank folder. "I've been saving money for years." Inside were bank statements, investment records, property documents. I was planning to repay every dollar, with interest. I just waited too long. I quietly closed the folder. "This isn't about the money anymore." Mitchell nodded. "I know. It's about the choice I made." Then he looked directly into my eyes. "I failed your father." Those words hit me harder than I expected. Because they were true. Finn Allen had trusted his family, and that trust had been broken. Mitchell wiped away a tear. "If I survive, I'll spend the rest of my life earning the forgiveness I don't deserve." For a long moment, I simply looked at him. Then I stood up. "I'll help pay for your treatment." Hope appeared in Hagar's eyes. Mitchell looked shocked. "But," I continued, "I have one condition." They both waited silently. "I want the truth. The entire truth. No more lies. No more pretending. I want every member of our family together this Saturday. My uncles, my aunts, my cousins, my father's closest friends. Everyone." Hagar slowly nodded. "I'll tell them." I looked at her. "No, you won't just tell them. You'll admit that you stole my college fund. You'll admit that you lied about me for 7 years. And Mitchell." I turned toward him. "You'll tell everyone that you accepted money that never belonged to you." Without hesitation, Mitchell answered, "I will." Hagar lowered her head. "So will I." 3 days later, more than 30 relatives gathered in the community hall where my father used to organize charity events. Everyone looked confused. They had no idea why they had been invited. Hagar slowly walked onto the stage. Her hands trembled as she picked up the microphone. She took a deep breath. Then she said the words no one expected. "For 7 years, I've been lying to all of you. The room became completely silent. She looked toward me, then back at everyone else. Finn Allen saved nearly $94,000 for Julia's education. After he died, I stole every dollar. I gave it to my son. Gasps filled the room. Several relatives stood up in shock. Tears streamed down Hagar's face. I also lied and told everyone Julia abandoned this family. That wasn't true. She left because I betrayed her. I destroyed Finn's final promise to his daughter. The room fell silent again. Then Mitchell slowly walked onto the stage. He took the microphone from his mother. I accepted that money. I knew it wasn't mine. I chose silence over doing what was right. He looked at me. I'm sorry, Julia. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted everyone to know the truth. For the first time in 7 years, the lies were finally over. My father's name was finally free. After the family meeting, no one moved. The room was completely silent. For 7 years, everyone had believed I was the selfish daughter who walked away after my father's death. Now, they finally knew the truth. My Aunt Carol slowly walked toward me. With tears in her eyes, she wrapped her arms around me. I'm so sorry, Julia. I should have asked for your side of the story. One by one, the rest of my relatives came over. Some apologized, some cried, some admitted they had judged me without ever knowing the truth. I accepted every apology, not because they deserved it, but because I refused to carry anger for the rest of my life. The following morning, I met with Mitchell's medical team. I didn't hand money to Hagar. I didn't write Mitchell a personal check. Instead, I paid the hospital directly. Every bill, every treatment, every expense. When the doctor shook my hand, he smiled. Because of this payment, we can move forward immediately. A week later, a matching kidney donor was found. The surgery lasted nearly 6 hours. I waited quietly in the hospital chapel, not because Mitchell was my stepbrother, but because my father had raised me to value life above pride. Late that evening, the surgeon walked into the waiting room. He smiled. The operation was successful. He's going to recover. Hagar broke down in tears. She looked at me, but I simply nodded. No words were needed. 3 months later, Mitchell asked to meet me. We met at a small coffee shop overlooking the river. He looked healthier, stronger, but his eyes still carried the weight of regret. He placed a folder on the table. I sold my investment property. I know it doesn't erase the past, but this is every dollar I owed you. Inside was a cashier's check. It included not only my college fund, but 7 years of interest. I gently pushed it back toward him. He looked confused. I don't want it. His eyes widened. What? I smiled. My father didn't save that money to make me rich. He saved it to give me a future. I already built that future. But there is something you can do. He leaned forward. Anything. I looked him in the eyes. Start a scholarship. For students who lose a parent and think their dreams are over. Tears rolled down his face. I promise. Every year. As long as I live. 6 months later, the Finn Allen Memorial Scholarship awarded its first 5 students. Each one had lost a parent. Each one dreamed of going to college. Watching those young students receive their scholarships, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Ease, not because someone apologized, not because the truth finally came out, but because my father's kindness was still changing lives. As for Hagar, she sold the last of her jewelry and quietly repaid the rest of what she had taken. I told her she didn't have to. She shook her head. I do. I can't change the past, but I can choose who I become now. We never became mother and daughter. Some wounds leave permanent scars, but we learn to speak with respect. Sometimes, that's the closest thing to forgiveness life offers. Every year on my father's birthday, I visit his grave with white lilies. One autumn afternoon, I stood there alone. The wind gently moved through the trees. I smiled and whispered, Dad, they took away the money you saved for me, but they never took away the lessons you taught me. You taught me that hard work beats shortcuts, that kindness is stronger than revenge, and that true success isn't measured by what you own. It's measured by the lives you change. As I turned to leave, I realized something. The greatest inheritance my father ever gave me was never that college fund. It was his faith in me. Hagar chose favoritism. Mitchell chose silence. I chose perseverance. And in the end, that choice changed all of our lives. If someone steals an opportunity from you, don't spend your life chasing revenge. Build a future so extraordinary that their betrayal becomes only a small chapter in your success story.